This is for the win. 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 This is for the win.
Welcome back to the CPENN for the Win Show. This is your host, Charles Penn. I'm back with episode number 19. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, and share on all your social media platforms. Today, we're going to kick off with the association, but I'm not going to harp on it too long because it's all about the NFL playoffs this week, of course, championship week. But I'm going to touch on the association for a little bit. Everybody was looking forward to the big three in Brooklyn. The B unit, aka the G unit. You know, KD, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving, they made their debut against the Cleveland Cavaliers. They lost that game, and everybody was just curious to see how all three of these guys would play. And as expected, in my opinion, you know, the entire team, for the most part, they ran a bunch of isolation plays, and there just wasn't much offense to go around. But the main thing is that their offense really isn't that much of a big deal. You know, maybe James Harden moving forward should be the point guard, but James Harden is a type of guy that has to see the ball go in the basket early, because otherwise he might be a little disinterested, you know, throughout the game, I guess, as far as scoring. But he did get it going a bit in the second half. But to me, with the Brooklyn Nets, is defense. All year long, their defense has not been good, and with this current roster now, it's gotten worse. What I've seen out there is that They basically let the Cavaliers have all these open shots out on the perimeter. Like, it seemed like the Nets was just kind of playing the zone defense, and like the Nets wasn't really collapsing until the Cavs got to the free throw line, and Colin Sexton just ate. Like, pretty much everybody on the Cleveland Cavaliers just ate. I mean, Jared Allen, and another thing, Jared Allen and Taurean Prince, they just came from the Nets too, so they already knew, you know, the type of schemes that the Nets run on both ends of the floor. So that also helped. Jared Allen, he played pretty well, and Taurean Prince hit key shots as well. So just got to know moving forward, it's going to take a minute with the Brooklyn Nets. You know, I mean, I think they'll figure it out, and like I said, they'll still be a top 3 team in the East, but if they're going to continue to play defense like that, they're not going to go very far in the playoffs. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if they don't make the Eastern Conference Finals at this rate, if they're going to continue to play like this. But like I said, it's brand new with Kyrie, KD, and James Harden. I mean, they're eventually going to figure it out, and they may get on a winning streak. But this leads me to this point. Regarding the Brooklyn Nets, I mean, you guys know that Steve Nash is the head coach now, and then you got Mike D'Antoni as the assistant. But to me, it's more Mike D'Antoni's the head coach, and Steve Nash is just the face. And we have learned in the past, you know, Mike D'Antoni, he's kind of an analytics guy. And we've seen it with when he was the coach with the Houston Rockets. They was very heavy on analytics. I know Daryl Morey and the guys that work for him, they was pretty heavy on analytics too. But what I'm seeing in professional sports is, I'm just concerned that all the professional sports leagues in general, like, teams are diving into analytics maybe a little too deep. Like, they're making it the end all be all instead of just using common sense in certain situations. Like with the Houston Rockets a few years ago against the Golden State Warriors, when they had a 3-2 lead and they blew the series when after Chris Paul went down. I mean, you guys seen that they missed 27 threes in a row. And the story behind that is that the Rockets coaching staff actually wanted them to take more 3-pointers, which is crazy within itself. Like, if your three is not going down, man, you gotta go to the basket and get an easier shot at some point. So, I mean, I remember just during that game, they was still in the game. Like, the Warriors was just trying to come back and everything, and the Rockets, they just refused to go to the basket. But after a while, they finally took a basket. You know, they finally took a 2-pointer and seen the ball go in the basket. And sometimes you got to do that in order just to get rolling. I just think certain teams in these leagues, they got these analytics guys with them, and they pretty much lean towards the analytics part of the equation instead of just using common sense. I believe that if the Rockets had just looked to take a few more twos, they probably could have still beat the Warriors. And then another example as far as baseball, not baseball, but as far as like sports leagues taking analytics too literal. Like, you guys seen with the World Series just recently with the Tampa Bay Rays and the Los Angeles Dodgers. Season on the line, Blake Snell pitching well. He goes 6 innings. I believe it was a 1-run game. And the Braves manager, he took him out the game. And Blake Snell, he only threw like, I believe 70 pitches, I believe. And Blake Snell was still good to go. I felt like Snell could have used like one or maybe two more innings. Like at this point, even though you've gone by the book all season long with Blake Snell as far as his pitch count and everything, like you gotta let that guy stay out there on the field. I mean, it's do or die. You lose this game, you're going home. But nope, Kevin Cash, he took him out the game, and the Rays eventually lost the game. The Dodgers just took advantage of their bullpen. And then another example with the analytics and everything. You guys just seen with the Colts and Bills wild card game. Frank Wright was going for 2 in odd situations, and also Frank Wright was going for it in situations where the Colts should have just took the field goal right before halftime. I mean, just things like that, just examples of that nature. I think professional sports need to get back to putting more common sense as far as like, you know, making the coaching decisions and everything. I think the analytics part of the game is just gone a bit too far, and it's kind of hurting professional sports a little bit, in my opinion. So to conclude this topic here, we just need common sense back in professional sports. All right, it is conference championship week in the National Football League. And to start off, we got 2 of the greatest quarterbacks we've seen in our lifetime in NFL history, with that bad man Aaron Rodgers, as Stephen A. Smith would say, and the GOAT, as a lot of people say, Tom Brady. Thomas Edward Patrick Brady. So we got the Packers and Buccaneers. The Packers, they're the number 1 seed in the NFC. They're hosting the game out in Lambeau. Now, in this game, I've dove into it deeply, and I believe that the game is going to eventually have to be on Aaron Rodgers' shoulders again. Like you guys seen earlier in the year, the Packers took a shellacking out of Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay won that game 38-10, and Aaron Rodgers had his worst game of the season. And I believe this time around, you know, Tampa Bay, they got a key guy coming back in Vita Vea, and he's one of the best run-stopping defensive tackles in the league. And with the Packers all season long, when they've won a lot of games, it's due to the fact they've been able to run the ball successfully with Aaron Jones. In this game, like with Vita Vea coming back, like it's gonna be kind of tough for the Packers to run the ball. And also, you gotta remember that Bakhtiari, he's out for the remainder of the season on that left side. You know, they all-pro left tackle. So I think Tampa Bay is gonna be able to stop the run, and then it's gonna be all on Aaron Rodgers' shoulders. Like, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, he's the favorite to win the MVP right now. Like, if you're the MVP of the league, man, you got to make some plays. You got to show your worth. Got to prove that you're that guy. But I just believe that in these type of situations, Aaron Rodgers has come up a bit short. And I just think at the end of the day, I think Tampa Bay can go out there and do it. You know, it's not like Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski haven't been used to the cold. Like some of the other guys on the team, I mean, they're not used to this environment. But, you know, Tom Brady, he's good at getting these guys ready. And Bruce Arians already said in a press conference last week, he's been sitting back more lately in this stretch that Tim's been on. He kind of let Tom Brady coach the team a little bit in a sense. And Tom Brady, he's always been a coach on the field throughout his career anyway. And Bruce Arians has learned that, you know, Tom Brady's been in the league long enough. He knows how to prepare. He knows how to watch film and attack defenses and read defenses in general. And Bruce Arians has been letting him do his thing. And the formula for Tampa Bay to win this game is this. I think they're going to ride Leonard Fournette more again. I think Leonard Fournette should have a decent game. And then you're going to see the Rob Gronkowski this game. Rob Gronkowski, he hasn't done much in the playoffs. You know, he hasn't got that many targets. He's been more instrumental in the blocking game, you know, when the Tampa Bay runs the football and everything. So I think Rob Gronkowski's going to have a monster game. He's going to be vital. And he's the type of guy that's used to playing in the cold environment and stuff. So I think both quarterbacks are going to have a great game. Should be close, down to the wire. I just think Tom Terrific is going to break Green Bay's hearts in the end. And Tampa should pull out a close one. And they'll be the NFC representatives in the Super Bowl. Now, we get to my favorite team out in the AFC. You got the Kansas City Chiefs. And then you got the Buffalo Bills. As everyone knows by now, Patrick Mahomes officially got cleared from concussion protocol. He will be out on the field, as if there was any doubt. You know, even though it looked scary last week, him getting up, woozy and everything. I mean, we knew that he was trying to get back in the game, but you know, the doctors and the coaches, they held him back. It's like, nah, man, you can't go back out there, bro. But anyway, I think the Chiefs should be able to manhandle the Bills, man. Like the Bills They're gonna make a few adjustments here and there. It's just that the Chiefs, they just got too many weapons. I know Clyde Edwards-Helaire is questionable. Sammy Watkins, he's currently questionable, but I actually expect those guys to go out there and play. And Sammy Watkins, you gotta remember, Sammy Watkins used to play for the Buffalo Bills. I'm sure he wants to get a little bit of revenge in this game, and everyone knows him as playoff Sammy. Sammy Watkins in the playoffs, he usually comes through. We seen, and it started, in that AFC Championship game a few years ago when the Chiefs came up just short in overtime. He had a monster game. So Sammy's going to be ready to go. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire, it'll be his first playoff game. But at the end of the day, we've seen it. Throughout the entire postseason, the Buffalo Bills have not been good at stopping the run. They almost given up 5 yards a carry. So I believe if the Buffalo's going to play the same defense and have their two safeties drop back, take away the deep stuff, the Chiefs, they've been capable of adjusting on the fly. They don't have an answer for Travis Kelce. He's the best tight end in football. You can just hit him underneath with some intermediate routes. And then the run game, I think the Chiefs can get some push up front. Even though their offensive line been inconsistent, but the Bills, they just don't look good in the trenches to me so far this season. And defensively, Josh Allen, this will be his first time on a big stage like this. This is where the inexperience may kick in a little bit, because Josh Allen himself, he's made a couple of key throws in these playoffs, but ain't really seen anything that impressive to me, in my opinion, throughout these playoffs. And I think Mahomes is just going to have a huge advantage because Mahomes has been there before. Josh Allen, he may be feeling some pressure up front in that front seven. I think Chris Jones and Frank Clark, they going to have monster games. And the Honey Badger, ever since Tyrann Mathieu has been the Kansas City Chiefs, he's come up big in the postseason. He's done his thing. And this year, it felt like, Badger, he was just kind of pacing himself here and there, and he was just getting himself ready for the postseason, and the results have shown. And, of course, you can't forget about Dirty Dan. Dirty Dan, he's always in on a big play during the postseason, it seems like. So I think the Chiefs go ahead and win this game in dominating fashion, and you'll have them as the AFC representative in the Super Bowl. And, get your popcorn ready. It's going to be a good one. So Chiefs and Buccaneers, my picks to represent the Super Bowl. All right. And speaking of the Chiefs and Bills AFC Championship game, I'm going to go back in time and talk about a running back who's also been forgotten as one of the great running backs in NFL history. And Chiefs fans, I can't be a homer on this show per se too much, but I got to give the Bills some love this week. And as I dive in, we talk about Thurman Thomas this week on Way Back When, former running back of the Buffalo Bills. But before we get to his pro career, we're going to start off here. He was born in Houston, Texas, May 16th of 1966. He was listed at 5'10", 200 pounds. He played at Oklahoma State. And the crazy part is him and Barry Sanders were teammates. And the crazy part about that is he's starting in front of Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders never got a starting job over him at Oklahoma State. So you talk about one of the best backfields we've seen in college football history in general. And after Thurman Thomas had a nice strong career, he was drafted 40th overall in the 1988 draft by the Buffalo Bills. Now, Thurman Thomas was a great all-purpose back. He did everything well. He was an elite blocker. He was a great receiver. He was good at route running, finding ways to get open. He had great vision, and he had nice cutback ability. And he found a way to fit in little creases in the offensive line to where he would get through them and get a decent amount of game. Now, when he first got to the Buffalo Bills, they was making the playoffs right away. They was making the playoffs every year right up until 1994. But during that run, everyone knows the Bills, they went to 4 straight Super Bowls, and unfortunately they couldn't win any of them. But this Bills offense was the run and shoot offense. It was led by Jim Kelly and Coach Mark Levy. Those guys, and that team in this current era, this team would put up about 38 points per game with the current rules. Because back then, the NFL was a little more physical, and they were still putting up a lot of points in offense production and everything. Now, the Bills, they officially made a name for themselves back in 1990-91 NFL playoffs. They went up against the Los Angeles Raiders. And in this game stood out to me the most because they just smacked them around. They had controlled the game from the jump. They beat this team 51-3. And I remember in this game that Howie Long was huffing and puffing throughout the entire game, because that Bills offense was just so fast and efficient. Like whenever they moved the chains, they got to the line and they didn't run the clock off that much. They just got right back to it and snapped the ball. Like it was very tough to defend their offense, and like you really have to be in shape to be able to hang those guys, and like you had to also have a great offense as well just to be able to hang with them. And also like defense, and like I said, defensively, guys be in shape and just be able to match up with them, because they was a tough matchup to deal with. Now in this game, Thurman Thomas, he ended up with 199 yards of total offense and a touchdown. So he had a great performance, but what also stood out is that the Bills, they was able to create 6 turnovers, and that game just got ridiculously out of hand. Now, as I mentioned, this team did go to 4 straight Super Bowls. I mean, they lost their first one to the Giants, wide right, and then they lost to the Washington, formerly known as Redskins, now football team. And then you lost to the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, Cowboys, they had a nice trio with Aikman, Smith, and Urban. But during that time, I mean, Buffalo, they was the cream of the crop in the AFC. But with the Chiefs and Bills AFC Championship game coming up this weekend, I want to specifically go ahead and talk about that game in 1994 to close out the Thurman Thomas segment here. In 1994, these were the 2 top teams in the AFC. The Chiefs had Joe Montana. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history, if not the greatest quarterback in NFL history. And early on, the Bills and Chiefs, they was playing tough football. But from the jump, the Bills were just the more physical team up front. I mean, the Chiefs were just getting manhandled. Thurman Thomas had a couple big runs. I know one specifically, he found a crease on the left side of the offensive line. I believe this was a big run. I believe the run happened in the second quarter. He found a little crease on the left side of the offensive line, and he took off for a huge gain. And that just kind of carried the momentum for the Bills throughout the entire game. And right before halftime, specifically, the Chiefs were in position to cut the lead and maybe carry some momentum on their end in the halftime. And Kilman Andrews, he dropped the pass. Unfortunately, it got picked off. And then again, the second half, Joe Montana gets knocked out of the game, and the game just basically gets out of the hand. But what stood out to me is that Thurman Thomas just found open lanes throughout the entire game, and they did a good job taking Derek Thomas out of that football game. So in the end, Thurman Thomas balled out. He ended up having a monster game, like 186 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns and 22 added receiving. So he had over 200 yards of total offense. Like the dude was just a monster. And throughout his career, Thurman Thomas did win an NFL MVP back in 1991. And he was also a 5-time Pro Bowler and a 2-time All-Pro. So I have to say, Thurman Thomas had a great career. When you look at his overall career, like his overall stats and everything, you're going to be like, this dude was just all right. But people don't understand. Thurman Thomas, at times, he sometimes wouldn't get 10 carries in a game. Like, he'll do most of his damage out the backfield, catching the football. So, however the game plan proceeded, Thurman Thomas was able to do his thing, whether it was on the ground and receiving. So, Thurman Thomas was just the problem. And, like, the Bills had all kinds of other weapons on their team, too, with Andre Reed and Don Beebe and James Lofton. I mean, that was just a tough team to defend overall. But at the end of the day, Thurman Thomas is still going down as one of the greatest running backs we've seen in our lifetime, and I feel like he doesn't get talked enough. I feel like he gets lost in the shuffle with guys like Barry Sanders, as I mentioned earlier, and Emmitt Smith, and other guys like that. So at the end of the day, I'm going to give my flowers to Thurman Thomas. I'm going to give my flowers to the Buffalo Bills, and the Bills, it's been a minute since they've reached this point. Congratulations to them. But, I got to talk my little trash in this segment. I think the season's going to come to the end for the Buffalo Bills, man. I know the Bills hype has been crazy. Griselda and Bendy the Butcher. And all that. So, but salute to you, Thurman Thomas. Before we go ahead and close out today's show, you had some unfortunate news today. Henry Hank Aaron, he passed away at the age of 86. He's known as one of the greatest baseball players we've ever seen play the game of baseball. Throughout his career, he was the original home run king, but people know that Barry Bonds eventually passed him up in that. But he hit 755 homers. He was the 1957 National League MVP. He's got a World Series ring, 25-time All-Star, which is crazy. 3-time Gold Glove winner, 2-time batting champ, MLB All-Century team, and he was a 1982 Hall of Fame selection. Now, Hank Aaron, to me, like with how he played and stuff, he was a guy that held a lot of records throughout decades. I mean, this guy is up there with Willie Mays and Barry Bonds and Josh Gibson from the Negro Leagues, and and Babe Ruth. I mean, it's pretty much your top 5 baseball players of all time right there. No matter which order you put them in. And I think what Hank Aaron did for the sport, he was a great icon. He was always a guy that was, just open about talking about the game whenever he was, available to be out there to consult and everything. I know he took Barry Bonds under his wing at the time when Barry Bonds was striving and thriving in his career. Even with the scandal he went through with the PEDs and everything, allegedly. But at the end of the day, Hank Aaron, he was there for Barry Bonds, supporting him and everything. And Barry Bonds had a monster career himself. So, we just want to close the show with our prayers and thoughts to Hank Aaron. He lived a long, great life, and he was a joy to watch. I know he was before my time, but there's enough footage out there for me to go back and see him play. I remember specifically watching Hank Aaron, like on ESPN Classic. They showed the home run derby, and it was different. It was head to head between the players, and they did it tournament style. And I remember Hank Aaron hitting that home run contest, in that black and white screen. So that's one of the memories I remember from Hank Aaron for sure. So rest in peace to a great baseball legend. And that's going to conclude today's episode 19. And again, I'd like to thank all my subscribers. And I want to thank everybody just for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share all your social media platforms. Until the next episode, we are out. And let's go Chiefs!
Get that dub, cuz! Get that dub!
Hey! Hey! We gonna beat the hell out of you! You!